Remove the black PVC outer sheath for a length of 160 centimeters by cutting radially around the HVSC cable with a sharp knife. The lengthwise cut is completed with a knife. Do not damage the black insulation under the copper tape as well as the first 3 centimeters of the copper tape against the outer sheath. With a knife, cut and remove the fabric tape material over the copper tape up to the outer sheath. Measure and mark with a pen the outer copper screen tape at 3 centimeters along from the end of the outer sheath. With a knife or scissors, carefully cut and remove the copper tape, again without damaging the black insulation below. If using a knife, carefully score the tape without cutting through it and use this score line to tear the tape along the line. Using a sharp knife, remove the black insulation to expose the inner aluminium conductors for a length of 5 centimeters from the top of the end of the HVSC plus. Also remove the black fabric material lining over the aluminium conductors. Be careful not to damage the conductor strands during this process. There are many valid ways of removing this layer, but it is very important that the aluminium conductor strands are not scored or damaged in any way, as this will decrease their strength and may lead to breakage when bending them for insertion into the crimp lug. Remove at least 3 centimeters of the black inner filler core under the inner aluminium conductors by carefully bending back the conductors to expose the filler core. Then cut and remove the core with a knife. Carefully bend the conductors back to allow them to be fed into the lug. Straighten the cable back to the black outer sheath as much as possible. Then crimp the inner aluminium conductors into the supplied 50mm square crimp lug using a suitable compression or mechanical crimping tool. Connect the crimp lug to the Storemaster or Guardian Cat mast base assembly using the bolt and washers as supplied with the assembly. Ensure the connection is aligned correctly and tightly secured using a 17mm spanner, socket or shifting spanner. Note the orientation of the lug on the lower finial connector once connected. Using the semiconductive tape provided, starting 2 cm in front of the end of the outer copper screen tape or 5 cm in front of the black outer sheath. Stretch and wrap the semiconductive tape back over the copper tape and 3 cm over the black outer sheath with 50% overlap, securing the outer copper screen tape in place. This should use approximately 50 cm of the tape. Note, do not cut the tape at this stage. Overwrap back towards the crimp end of the cable, again stretching the tape with 50% overlap, leaving 5 cm covering the outer copper screen tape and the black insulation and 3 cm covering the black outer sheath. This should use approximately another 50 cm of the tape. Wrap another 2 layers, again stretched with 50% overlap, back up to where the black outer sheath ends to build up the cable diameter and to smooth out transitions in diameter. Cut the tape and press down firmly to ensure it amalgamates with the tape below. Again, using the semiconductive tape, start stretching and wrapping over the aluminium conductor strands at the connection to the lower finial connector to start building up in multiple layers. Continue wrapping the tape over the area shown to cover the last 3 cm of the black insulation, over the lower finial connector, and up to the black plastic section of the mast butt assembly in multiple layers, completely covering the crimp and achieving as smooth and level a surface as possible, removing all sharp edges. Remove the plastic mast butt adapter section of the mast base assembly, if fitted, by unscrewing the M6 Phillips head screw on the side. Straighten the cable as much as possible, then carefully slip the first 1.2 meter length of heat shrink over the cable until the end of the heat shrink tube covers and overlaps the semiconductive tape over the black outer sheath by at least 3 cm. Using a gas torch or a heat gun, carefully shrink the lower end of the heat shrink into the correct position and gradually work up towards the top of the heat shrink, ensuring that there are no pockets of air trapped under the heat shrink. Ensure that the heat gun or gas torch is not pointed in the same area for too long, as this will burn the heat shrink. Also be careful around the ends of the tube, as too much heat will damage the black PVC outer sheath, semiconductive tape and black XLPE insulation. Place the second 600mm heat shrink tube into place over the cable, again ensuring that the semiconductive tape is not damaged, overlapping the previous heat shrink tube by approximately 6 cm. Shrink about 7 cm of the upper end of the heat shrink into place so that it will sit flush with the base of the plastic mast butt adapter when fitted into place. There is a mark on the lower finial connector indicating where the heat shrink needs to be fitted to. Shrink the rest of the heat shrink from the top down, ensuring that it overlaps with the previous piece of heat shrink by at least 6 cm. Ensure the rest of the heat shrink has a smooth overall finish. Do not bend the cable while the heat shrink is still hot. If required, feed the cable through the mast sections and guying ring prior to refitting the mast butt adapter. Place the plastic mast butt adapter section of the mast base assembly back onto the lower finial connector and ensure that M6 Phillips head screw is tight and secure. The lugged HVSC Plus is now ready to be connected to the base of the Stormmaster or Guardian Cat terminal. Screw the terminal onto the completed terminal base assembly and secure with the supplied M6 locking grub screw.